Hi guys, and welcome back to the Big Sew Along, and welcome back to week 3 of our month-long Opal Annie Sew Along. Our first week we sewed the dandelion, last week we sewed the Sachi pants, and this week we are sewing the Dottie dress and tunic, which is this one. I originally said I was going to use my diamond textiles for this. I haven't been crazy about the fabrics I've chosen to go together. Like, I love all the fabrics. I'm just not sure I like them together. So I scrapped that idea and I decided to make it out of this beautiful silk shantung that I got from my local fabric store, Haberman's, right up the road. The only thing I changed about this pattern, I'm going to show you really quickly right here, a picture of the original, the very first one that I made. And this I just made in a cotton lawn that I bought off of Etsy a few years ago. You can see here that the neckline is a little high for me. So in the tutorial, the first thing I'm going to do is show you how I lowered the neckline, and then we'll get on with sewing the rest of the pattern. I don't think I have anything else to say about this just now. Okay, let's go to the tutorial and then we'll come back. Okay, so just a couple of things to note when cutting your Dottie. First of all, you will have a shorter hemline on the front than on the back, so just be sure that you trace this out and cut it off after you cut the other piece out. The other thing is, you'll notice that there's a big shape here where your applique goes. You can trace that out. I actually just put a little notch at each end of my applique piece, because then when we lay it down, we'll just set it between those two notches. And the third thing is, for me, the Dottie neckline was a little bit high. So on the front piece, I just used this neck size down. The neckline for the neck size down is where I cut off my front piece. And you can see here that I just tapered it right back up into the shoulder like you normally would. So that's my front piece. The first thing we're going to do is go ahead and put our applique on. So I'm going to open this up so that it is right sides out. And you can put it on either side. I'm going to put mine on my left side here. Here's my applique. And this is completely raw edges here. I am just going to see if I can find my notch here. It's right here. That is the top of my applique. And the bottom should be right about there. Yeah. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to baste it down along this straight edge just to keep it from flapping around while I'm working with it. But then I am going to stitch it along the curved edge all the way around. Just pin it so it's nice and flat. I'm going to stitch it down and then I'm going to zigzag over that. I particularly like the way appliques look when they have a zigzag, especially because this is going to be a raw edge here. So I have my applique on here. You can see I decided not to zigzag around that. I thought maybe it would be cooler if I let it fray. Anyways, that's just a design decision. So the next thing we need to do is establish where our pocket is going. So I'm just going to lay a piece of chalk paper down here. You can do this any way you want. I know it's kind of right about there. And then I'm going to lay my dress pattern piece back on top of this. It doesn't need to be exact. You just want it to be close. So my pattern piece should look right about like that. Now I'm just going to put a little, with my chalk wheel, I'm just going to put a little notch, a little mark at each of the 4 sides of my circle. I'm just going to take that off. And yeah, you can just, I know you guys probably can't see it, but I can just barely see where those 4 spots are. So The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take one of our pocket pieces, and it'll look like this. So this is the back side of our pocket. Essentially, it's the facing that will be. And you cut both pocket pieces just like this. And then for this one, I just took a chalk pen and drew around that circle. But you could also use pins if you need to. Just mark that circle out any way you can. Then we are going to kind of line this circle up with our marks that we just made. So I want it to be straight. The bottom of my pocket is right there, and that kind of matches up with my mark right there. And this edge, yep, that matches pretty well right there. And let's see. That looks like it matches exactly right there. And then we have one more. It doesn't really matter at this point. We're just going to go with that. Okay. Now, we're just going to go to the sewing machine and sew around this circle. Through all the layers. We're just going to sew right around that. I forgot to say, I finished the edges of this pocket on both pocket pieces before I put my pocket in. The directions tell you to sew it all together and then finish your pocket edges. When you do that though, you have just like this little bit. When you come around here, you don't have very much fabric here to work with. So for me, it's just easier to do it this way. But if you prefer, you can sew the whole thing together and then sew around the edges and finish them together. Okay, so here we have our circle that we've just sewn over our pocket. And now all we're going to do is cut this circle out. We're going to leave about 1/4 of an inch all the way around the edge. We're going to cut through all 3 layers here. Your pocket, your applique, and your dress front. Okay, once we have that trimmed out, we are just going to go in here and clip all the way around this circle. Clip right into your seam allowance, but don't cut through your stitching, obviously. Just cut as close as you can to it. Okay, once you get that clipped all the way around, we're going to flip this thing to the inside. So it's going to be like this all the way around, and you're going to press that down. It's a lot easier to do this with an iron. So once you get this pressed to the inside, you're going to stitch around this edge with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Just go nice and slow all the way around the circle. Okay, so our dress should look something like this now, with a big hole right in the center, well, on the side of the front. And then the back side will look something like this. I know it's going to be hard to see color on color, but this is the pocket that I've sewn down. That's the edge. Now we're just going to take the other side of the pocket and lay it right on top of this one. We're going to pin that in place. We're just going to pin it just to the front pocket piece, not through the whole dress. Okay, so now we're just going to sew all the way around the outside edge of this pocket, and we're just sewing these 2 pieces together. When you get up here to the curve, you've got a pretty small seam allowance to work with, so be sure you keep your dress out of the way. You don't want to get it caught in there. You just want to sew the front of your pocket to the back of your pocket. Okay, so the next step is to sew our shoulder seam. So we're just going to take our front piece and our back piece. We're going to place them right sides together and sew just the shoulder seams for the moment. Just like that. And then we need to assemble our drawstrings. If you're not making the long bell sleeves, you'll just have 1 drawstring for the neck. If you're making the long bell sleeves, then you'll have 3, 1 for the neck and 2 for each sleeve. You're just going to take your long strips and you're going to fold them inwards, like each side inwards, and then fold them over in half and sew them down. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is determine our the size of our neckband. We cut it, I think we cut it 6 inches, whatever the depth is, by the length of the fabric, but we don't need that whole thing. So we're just going to measure our neckline at about 3/8 of an inch down, and just walk your tape measure along like this. That's the front, and the front measures 12 3/8. And then I'm going to do the same thing along the back, because on mine they're different, remember, because I lowered the front neckline. So 12 3/8 for the front, and $11 inches for the back. So half of our neckline is 23 3/8 inches. We need to multiply that by 2. Okay, so our total neck measurement is going to be 46 3/4 inches. And we need to add an extra inch. So my neckband needs to be 47 3/4 inches. So we'll just measure it like this. Okay, so once we have our neckband established, this should go around my whole neckband, we're just going to take both of the short ends here. We're going to fold this under 1/4 of an inch, and then another 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to stitch that down, and we're going to do that on both ends. Okay, so here's our neckband, and you can see we have both of our short ends folded over twice and stitched down. That's one, that's the other one. Now we're going to fold this lengthwise, wrong sides together, just like this, and press it down the middle. Then on this side, the raw edge side, we're going to baste this at 1/4 of an inch from the raw edge. And then 1/2 inch away from this edge, we're going to sew a line of stitching, and that's going to be the casing for our drawstring. So 1/2 inch from the folded edge is our line of stitching, and 1/4 of an inch from the raw edge is our basting. Okay, so here we are back with our dress. I forgot to say earlier, you guys, you want to stay stitch your neckline on this so that it doesn't get stretched out when we're putting on our neckband. So this is the wrong side of my dress. This is the right side, and this piece here is the front. So you can see here, you don't have to do this. You can just put this in like this. I like to just zigzag my front edges right at the very bottom together, just so it's easier to get it to stay in one place when you're sewing the neckband on. You'll see what I mean when we get there, but you don't have to do that. You can just leave it loose. In any case, your 2 front pieces go right here at the center front, and we're just going to pin this all the way around the neck. Okay, once we have that pinned in, we're just going to go to the sewing machine and sew that in with our 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around the neckline, and then we're going to serge it or finish that seam any way you like. And then we're going to press the seam allowance down towards your dress, and then from the right side you're going to want to top stitch that seam allowance down. Okay, so you can go ahead and put your drawstring in your neck now, or you can do that when we're done. It doesn't really matter. Next we're going to do our sleeves. And the way we're going to do this, I'm going to put my sleeve right side up, and the, oh whoops, wrong way. The long end is the one that gets attached to your dress. So I'm going to open up the side of my dress, and I'm going to place that center, I have a little notch there, but I've also pressed it so I could see more clearly. I'm going to put those right sides together just like that. And then we're just gonna sew this on with our 3/8 inch seam allowance. We're gonna finish the seam and press the seam allowance towards the dress. And then you'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, that's our sleeves on. Now, if you follow the directions and you press your seam allowance towards the dress, you're gonna need to snip it right here because you want this seam, the rest of the seam allowance for the dress part to be sticking out out this way. So just make a little snip at the bottom of your underarm seam allowance, press the sleeve seam allowance towards the dress, and leave this one facing the other direction. Now, if you're making the short sleeve dress, all you really have to do is hem your sleeves and sew the side seams. Today we're making this the longer sleeve with the bell sleeve. Yeah, sorry, longer bell sleeve. So for that, you're going to take your lower sleeve piece, you're going to fold the hem under 1/4 inch and then another 3/4 inch, so it looks like that. You're not going to sew it down. Don't sew it down. Open that back up, and you can see right in the center, this way, and right at that first fold line, actually it's the second fold line, I put a buttonhole, and that's going to be for our drawstring to come through our sleeve. Again, we're not doing anything with this yet. What we're going to do first is, and then I've run 2 rows of gathering stitches along the opposite end, not the hemmed end obviously, but the other end. Then we're going to put our dress down like this. This is the right side of our dress. This is the center of my sleeve right here. So I'm going to center that over the short sleeve. I'm just going to pin that in. And then I'm going to gather these sleeves up so that they're the same width as the short sleeve piece. Now that we have that finished, now we have that pinned in place, we're going to go ahead and sew that seam and then finish that seam allowance. On this piece, I've already done that, but it was fraying, so I still need to finish the whole thing because this side isn't. In any case, just finish your seam and press it. I think press it up into the short sleeve is better. The other thing is, when you're doing your gathering, try not to gather this last 3/8 inch on either side because you're going to need that for your seam allowance when you go to sew the underarm. Okay, so just do that exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so that's our side seams and underarms done. The only thing I want to point out here is that because you have like a real point here in the underarm, you're going to have to really clip into that corner. You can see where I really just like clipped both edges right off so that it'll lay flat on the outside. Then, here's the right side. Now, on our sleeves, we have this all pressed and ready to go. All you have to do is fold this back under, or up actually, like this, and stitch along this edge as close as you can to this edge, and then thread your tie through your buttonhole. The very last thing we have to do is our hem. And because it's a curved hem, you're going to have to make it pretty small, otherwise it'll bunch up. But you're just going to fold this under 1/4 inch and press it, and then another 1/2 inch and press that and stitch all the way around. And then your Dottie is finished. Okay, so you can see it's not a difficult make, the Dottie. There are a couple of things that take a little bit more time. The pocket, but it's well worth doing. It's a really cute detail on this dress. I'm going to show you the first one I made. I'll show you again right here so you can see the pocket when it's a contrast color. Then I'll show you the one I'm wearing today. And then I also made this in a solid white linen because there's nothing I like more than a solid white linen top of any sort. This linen I used is a lightweight linen, and you can kind of see the pocket through the shirt. Actually, I don't really think that bothers me. I haven't decided yet, but I'm pretty sure it won't bother me. Anyways, this is how it looks in a solid color. And on this one, and also on the white one, I actually put my casing, you're supposed to sew the casing line a ½ inch from the top. I sewed it there, and then I sewed it another ½ inch down from that, so that when you gather it up, you get this like little ruffle kind of effect. And you can see that in some of these closer up pictures here. I'll show you. I think that's it, you guys. I love this Dottie dress. I thought it was a really, again, just a really fun make. And again, lots of places where you can play with your fabrics and stuff if you're not having problems with that like I have been. The only real option you have in this is either the short sleeve or the puffy, like sort of bell sleeve, like this one. But like I said, you have plenty of options for mixing up your patterns and your fabrics and stuff like that. And that's it. It's been really fun so long, the Opal Annie has, and I thank Donna again for allowing us to do this. It's been really, really fun. Don't forget that Donna has offered us all a 50% off coupon. GINISFRIENDS at checkout will get you 50% off your purchases over at Opal Annie on Etsy, and as usual, I will link her below. And as usual, don't forget, if you're on social media and you're taking pictures of any of your Opal Annie makes, please hashtag them with TBSA Opal Annie so we can all find you. Now, for February, we're going to be doing another Etsy designer, bmann by Bridget, and we are going to start with week 1. We're going to do her Claire de Lune hoodie top. Week 2 will be her Les Etoiles tunic dress. And week 3 will be her flower drum pants, because I can't resist another pair of pants. She actually has several other pants in there, but these are the ones I was first struck with, so we're going to go with those. I will link bmann by Bridget. I will link her shop down below also. And I think that's it for this week, guys. I hope it is. I always forget something. I think that's it. Alright, guys. Have a great week. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you in February.